वेलकम टू डेफ टॉक्स. दिस इज आदि अचिंत. आइए समझें जियोपॉलिटिक्स को एक भारतीय नजरिए से.
So India has a mindset where it hits, it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch the post.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है. हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, and today we have with us Major General Prabdeep Singh, who will tell us what's happening in Ukraine. Modi Saab is there. Actually, he's going there. A lot of people are there. NATO summit. Another carrot in front of Zelensky. You're joining NATO. And of course, Putin has already said, this is what I want. Give it to me. Otherwise, ... Let's try and find out what's happening. Namaskar, sir. Welcome to the show.
Namaskar. Thank you, Aadi. Thank you to have me once again on the show. It's a pleasure to be back. Ukraine. I think it's been a long while that we discussed Ukraine. But however, we should not lose sight of Ukraine because it continues to remain the pivot in the geopolitical arena. I mean, while Israel and Gaza is there, whatever is happening there, Middle East, but the fact remains that Ukraine is the one trigger which has kind of altered the entire geopolitical landscape. So I'm not going to talk much about the introduction part of it. Let's get straight onto the agenda and see as to what exactly is today the status of Ukraine. Since we are getting together and talking about it after a long time, I thought it worthwhile to just show a couple of slides and explain to the viewers as to where it is. You see, this is how the control of Ukraine has changed over a period of time. What you see here in Feb 2022, before the invasion, it was only Crimea, which was kind of occupied in 2014 and annexed in 2014 by Russia. And there were certain areas where there was a lot of Russian influence. Now, come March 2022, when the in special military operation took place, what you see under the top right, that is the kind of territory which had been taken over by the Russians. Then you had by November 2022, the Ukrainians had managed to push the Russians to a certain amount and retaken, lost, captured territories. And that is what you see in purple onto the top, bottom left. That is the territories which the Ukrainians took over. Now, as of today, this is what it looks like. That is the bottom right corner. Now, about 1/5 of the territory, that is about 20% of Ukrainian territory, is in Russia's hands. This is where it stands. Now, getting you a little closer onto the map, on the top, you see Kharkiv, and that is where, the northern offensive is going on. While incremental gains are being made, the pace of the gains is quite fast. What you see today, that there are no areas where you find the Ukrainians, having regained territory or launching offensives. The Ukrainian army today is entirely on the defensive on all across fronts. Now, this is something which you got to keep in mind because basically they've run short of manpower and they're waiting for the equipment. Of course, the situation is kind of improved over a period of time. A lot of ammunition has come in, but it is insufficient. The manpower is insufficient. So they're basically on the defensive. They keep talking about some counteroffensive, which they may launch, but that doesn't seem to be happening. On the contrary, you have talked so much about the peace. Peace is being discussed. Ceasefire is being talked about. So we'll, now this is something what is happening on the north. Just a little blow up. This is the Belgorod region on the top. This is where the Ukrainians are also launching, drone strikes, and this is where Kharkiv is. Kharkiv is about 30 kilometers away from the front line as of today. Now, what you see on the left, yeah, so within range. So what you see on the top left, I put a dotted arrow because this is something which is brewing up, which we gather in the next couple of days, in the coming week. We may have another thrust line opening up from this particular area, again directed towards Kharkiv. Now, if this happens, you will find the troops getting diverted from the eastern front. Now they are getting attracted towards the north, further to the north. So this is something which is about to happen, and it's going to be interesting to see as to how the Ukrainian army is reacting to it. This is again a blow up. I just wanted to show with this that how complicated the terrain is. When all of us keep questioning as to, the progress is not so fast, they're taking so many months to gain any amount of territory. You look at the rivers and the canals and all the water bodies.
A lot of water bodies.
A lot of water bodies. So crossing over the water bodies is extremely difficult. Hence the progress, while it is slow, it's not that slow also. So you got to give the Russians credit for improving their posture. Now, this is a slide which I have added, and I just want the viewers to just realize now as to what is likely to happen. Actually, I could have covered it later, but I thought it's a good idea कि इसको अभी cover कर लेते हैं, so that we get into other topics. We know that what is happening in Belarus. There was a joint exercise, tactical nuclear weapon exercise, joint deployment which took place between the Russians and the Belarusians. So the TNWs have been deployed there. While it was an exercise, there's no confirmation that the TNWs have gone back or they've been packed up. They continue to remain deployed. What the Belarusians are saying that the Ukrainians have started a lot of drones are seen over Belarusian territories, and they are kind of apprehensive that the Ukrainians may be wanting to carry out terrorist acts and sabotage within Belarusian territory. So what they've done is they've gone about and deployed troops. So you have Belarusian troops deployed along the border between Ukraine and Belarus. Similarly, the Ukrainians are also deploying their troops. So in effect, what is happening is north of Kyiv, because that's the shortest distance where you see the arrow coming, that's the shortest distance between Kyiv and the Belarusian and the international border. There is a cause of concern if you have the Belarusian army being deployed over there. In effect, what happens? There is diversion of troops. So a lot of troops, fighting troops, have now been engaged into a defensive posture right at the top in the north. Now you will see another two red and yellow arrows, which are put with question marks there. This is also an interesting phenomenon. If it happens, at the moment, what we are seeing as activity in the east, and I'm not covering what is happening in the east. North, I've just explained to you as to what is happening in Kharkiv, and then the other red arrow next to Kharkiv, the dotted line arrow, that is showing activity which has already commenced, and attacks are going to take place maybe around the 8th, 9th or so, or around that particular time. And
during the NATO summit, sir?
Yeah, during the NATO summit, about maybe a day prior to the NATO summit. Now, I want to talk about those two other arrows, which I put with question marks. Any military planner, if I just look at this map and I say, okay, I've put pressure on the Belarusian front, I have put pressure on the east, I have opened up a thrust line from the north, that is towards Kharkiv, that is the second largest city of Ukraine. I must now head for the capital, that is, and then capitulate the entire war effort. I am 100% sure that when the time comes, these two fronts will be opened up. There are these two roads which are leading to Kiev, and these two roads will be exploited. And at that particular time, I doubt if Ukraine will have any troops to defend territory. As it is, it's woefully short of air defense. Air defense would be all deployed all over. And you can't, it is virtually impossible to have the entire country covered with air defense. Whatever Patriot missile systems that they may get, and whatever missiles systems which they may get from Germany, etc. Of course, they are awaiting F-16s, and we'll talk about that later. So this is a situation which may develop. And if it develops, it's extremely, extremely dangerous for Ukraine, because Kyiv will be certainly under attack. And the speed at which operations will move will be much faster, as I don't think they have visualized this. So if the Russians or the Ukrainians are listening to this, I think they should, are they watching this? They should be wary of, the Ukrainians should be wary of this, and the Russians may want to exploit this. And I'm sure they have plans to do so. This is another Chasiv which keeps coming into the news, and I thought I'll just cover as to where it is. It is 10 kilometers east of Bakhmut. And basically, even after the capture of Bakhmut, which was, of course, one of the fiercest and the longest battles here. Yeah. The next battle, it went on to Chasiv Yar, and Chasiv Yar today, the eastern part has already been taken. And this is the Ukrainians are holding on to the western district. In the western part, if it opens up, it'll open a path to greater, the momentum of the operation will further increase. Now, just to put something more perspective, President Zelensky has stated that his manpower position has improved. They've been able to, I'm just trying to say that they've been able, after all, they got the prisoners of wars, about 3,000 of PWs, and about conscripts, about 29,000 conscripts they've been able to muster up. And they're looking at raising about 10 brigades. They say they'd be able to raise about 10 brigades. However, the equipment remains a concern. Now, this statement coming out of the president, as also from the defense officials, is a little, to me, it appears a little misleading. This is more, I need equipment. I have manpower. I need equipment. मुझे सामान दो तब मैं लड़ाई करूंगा. आदमी है मेरे पास. That kind of desperation is kind of coming about. And of course, F-16s. Pardon my spelling or delivery. The Ukrainians are still awaiting for the F-16s. However, they're saying that this is going to, 2 odd aircraft are going to come by the end of this month or within this month. And what is happening in the Russians? What are they doing? They're targeting all their airfields.
Yep.
Now, I had earlier been saying that, airfields, railway stations, railway yards, these are all strategic targets, oil refineries, ports. So all these are being hit. And so, of course, the Ukrainians making efforts along with the help of the Western, intelligence that they're receiving and the guidance that they get from the Americans, they are being able to target all the oil refineries, etc., on Russian soil. So total area which has been captured in 2024 by the Russians is 880 square kilometers. That's what the Russians claim. The Ukrainians say that it's about 750 square kilometers, 52 square kilometers. So, and
he's a clown, that guy, yaar. He's a clown. Who made him a president?
So he said, नहीं, इतना नहीं है, इतना है. Capture हो गया, but इतना नहीं है. साला कितना भी है, but captured है. Now, you know what happened to the peace summit, right? That summit in Switzerland was a total failure.
Failure.
A total failure, because
Now,
nothing worthwhile came about.
now he
So
says we are
now
working on a new formula.
a new drafting a peace plan and hold another peace summit, and in which Russia can attend in one way or another. But now that reconciliation is coming, that without Russia, this peace plan is not going anywhere. And the Russians, if they think that they are going to come and listen to them, and you know what the Russians did before this peace summit, a day prior to that peace summit, President Putin went and announced a peace formula. I mean, he is a master strategist. He said, even before you open this peace summit, these are my conditions. And his conditions are very simple. He didn't mince his words. He says the Ukrainians need to get out of all those four oblasts, that is Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson. Kindly get out of that. Leave this area free. This is Russian territory. So first step, if you want peace, all the Ukrainian troops should withdraw from these four oblasts, right? These provinces. Second, he said, no question that the Ukraine has to will join NATO. So he made it very clear. So when you, and this is something even before the peace summit started, he had said it became a no-go. The peace summit, even before it took off, became a no-go. So let us see as to what is the next summit that he is talking about and what are they coming at. Interestingly, Viktor Orban, the Hungarian president, now who's become who's got the chair of the EU, right? Now, he landed up in Kiev the other day, and he proposed a ceasefire. He says the only way to talk is ceasefire, and actually that's the fact. Before you come onto the a table, you got to ceasefire, and then only you can talk. So he proposes ceasefire, and obviously this was not taken very well by Zelensky. Anyway, now just because he's the chair of the EU, he had to be very nice, and he says, okay, we will continue to cooperate as EU along with the Ukrainians and look for a best possible solution. So he played it. He was not his original self when he visited there. Now, of course, this continues. Now, ammunition depots and occupied Crimea. Crimea is something which is actually, I think, the entire operations into Crimea. This is something which is being very well orchestrated by the West. The Ukrainians are doing it, but
Backed
they
by
are
the
all
Americans.
being guided, because the entire intelligence, the reconnaissance, etc., and the guidance is being done by the Americans. And you know what happened the other day? There was a kind of a clash between a Global Hawk and one of the aircraft, the Russian Sukhois. So this kind of a game is being played in Crimea, and Crimea is something which obviously is hurting Russia in a major way. Let's face facts. But you can do what you want to do. You can level out Crimea, or you can level out the naval ships. But the fact of the matter remains, until unless there are troops, until unless you occupy territory by land forces, it's not going to happen. So now the Russians are, again, this is the second point. The Russian submarines are now started being seen along UK, in the Irish near Ireland border.
Sir,
right?
they were there
Now,
next to Miami. They were being seen
yes.
with simple binoculars off the coast of Miami.
Yes. So this is the kind of intimidation that is taking place.
The last
Whether
time
it
that
is
happened, they were
Cuba,
about to kill the last time that happened, they
yes,
were about to kill the world. This time, nobody said a hoot.
yes. So they're found in Cuba, they're Havana, wherever you want to call it, but they're there. And so in the present situation and the kind of leadership in the United States, and we've seen what happened out of the debate, the United States is under tremendous pressure. And whether they're going in the right direction, I really do not know.
Yeah.
Now, the third point that I put across here is another interesting fact, that the electronic warfare is playing merry hell all across in Europe and in the US. So the Russian EW is actually interfering in the satellites, interfering in the GPSs, in the air traffic control, TV programs, etc. So this is something which the Russians have always been very strong at. And this is being exploited by them and causing a lot of trouble. And we've got this another, footage which I happened to come across, where this ATC at whatever the ATACMS rocket that has been ATACMS that has been captured by the Russians, and they're studying that, and subsequently they'll find an antidote to it and then screw the shit out of these guys. So this is happening. Then, of course, strikes which are taking place. PRC, that is China and Russia, they're working towards a drone. They're also going to have a joint, manufacturer drone, which is going to be something like the Shahid one, and then again employ that. The last one, Tucker Carlson is going to have an interview with Zelensky. Now, that is something that we all got to wait for.
No, they refused him. They refused him.
They refused it? Okay.
They refused. They said,
because obviously he would have made a monkey out of them. Now, you know what is happening in NATO, right? So they're going to be celebrating the 75 years in Washington, and this summit is taking place from 9th of July to the 11th of July. Now, I'm just trying to give you a little background onto this, because NATO without Ukraine, now let me just put it this way. Today, NATO, we are talking NATO because there is a war in Ukraine. If there was no war in Ukraine, we won't be talking NATO at all. Right? NATO had become insignificant, and suddenly you find that NATO's got, it's assumed importance. So when it started it at 12 members, today you're talking 32 members, and they're going to be there. The reason they're getting is to address the challenges. And interestingly, the Secretary General's statement says, at the Washington summit, we will demonstrate NATO's unity and strength once again. Once again. Malab, there was a time we were strong, and now again we have to start in support of Ukraine and to keep all our people and values safe. So this is the main agenda that they are getting together with. Now, the history of, a little bit of history, important to know how it builds up as far as Ukraine is concerned. Warsaw Summit, they said, okay, fine, Ukraine can join, but it has to adhere to the comprehensive assistance package. Now that involves all, on the diplomatic front, on the economic front, political front, corruption, etc., etc. Then 22, they had the Madrid summit. They further said, you've got to strengthen the cap and provide more support. 23, Vilnius, they said, okay, cap, we can kind of modify. Yeah. And we're looking at interoperability. Now, all that is happening. If you want to go further into history, it started in 2008. Then it was 2014. It got, it became non-aligned. 2010 to 2014, there was nothing which happened. And then Crimea took place. So again, that urge to join NATO started. In 2017, they started seeking membership. 2019, there was an amendment to the Ukraine's constitution. 2020, he approved the national security strategy. And 22, of course, again, it started the request for NATO membership. Now, will it get NATO's membership is a huge question mark. Milega, nahi milega. They say that you will eventually get it. I think the West is poodle faking and playing around with the Ukrainians, because their interest lies elsewhere. Their interest is to continue the war, to make sure that the war continues, to make sure that the defense industrial complex is alive and kicking. It continues to churn out weaponry and provide jobs, etc., etc. It's got nothing to do with Ukraine. So their interest is to keep the Ukraine war going. They're not talking about, they're not interested in Ukraine. They're getting the Ukrainians killed. That's about it. Now, they will regularly assess the progress. This is the last summit. NATO will be in a position to extend an invitation to Ukraine to join the alliance when allies agree and conditions are met. This was the last statement. Conditions are met. And the conditions are that if you are in a state of war, it cannot be met. We cannot, So in Washington, D.C., they're going to again come up with something. And Turkau, if I may just use this word, Turkau Ukraine even further.
Well, again, Ukraine is too corrupt. So they might be
they already
challenges.
started giving feelers. No, they already started giving feelers. That is the U.S. State Department, some official has said that it's too corrupt. This is what it is. Ukraine will be informed it can't join NATO because of its corruption. They're going to give it in writing to them. They'll keep, pouring in billions. They now released a package of 2.3 billion. You release so much of money, and then they say, "Don't be corrupt." On the other hand, you have Zelensky's wife having a blast all over the world.
She
and
bought a
enjoying life.
Maserati.
Yes.
A Maserati. Can you imagine?
Yeah, after all, she got money, man.
$480,000, sir.
क्या है उसके लिए?
Ugh.
So it is believed that in this coming summit, they're going to give it in writing that this is our latest position. You sort out corruption in your country, and then we will talk about it. So what it basically means is, किसी को टरकाना होता है ना, this is the typical bureaucratic way of delaying anything. These people are naive enough to not understand that this is not going to happen. Or either together they are fooling the world. And of course, you've got Mark Rutte, who's going to be the next Secretary General in October.
The guy is a very pragmatic chap, by the way.
Yeah. So this is where I, today when I look at Ukraine, just to sum it up, this thing, the war is going to continue. There's going to be no peace. Who is the person who's going to broker peace? People have tried. China has tried. The Pope has tried, right? Even I think the Saudis also tried. So nothing is going to happen. And they're looking perhaps at India as to, you are the one who's playing, who's got his feet on both sides of the fence. And you're able to kind of help us out. Now, it was perhaps a very deliberate move on part of India not to be a part of this, that the Prime Minister did not attend the peace summit in Switzerland. Straight away he'd gone for the G7 meeting and he did not attend it. Now, this was something which never got appreciated, but I think that was the correct move because the fact remained that Russia was not present. If in a meeting where two parties, if peace plan has to be discussed, both parties have to be present. In this case, Russia was not even invited, not even talked about. And it kind of was an internal affair amongst the West as to what their approach should be. So that is where it stood. So it was a good thing that the Indian Prime Minister was not there. And we shall see as to what happens in the future. So the war is continuing. The war is going to get complicated. And Russia is continuing. With every day passing, Russia is gaining territory. If Ukraine is sensible, and I've said it earlier, They should agree to a ceasefire on the current line and come on to something like a line of actual control, and a line of control or a line of actual control as is where is basis, and then get on to talks and see the way out. Now, that is what many governments, many advisors are there advising the Ukrainians, but then they are, I think they're proud and proud Ukrainians. They want their territory back. Will it happen? Will the Russians agree to it? I have my doubts the Russians are going to do that. F-16s not coming. Even if coming, they will alter the, I would say again, the landscape of the entire battlefront. If they are operated from Ukrainian soil, they will be plastered. If they are operated from airfields which are not in Ukraine, say from Poland and the neighboring countries, then again there is trouble, because the Russians will kind of are not going to spare those airfields, because you will have fighter jets of the enemy being stationed in a supposedly non-neutral country. So that, and
That's a
that
problem.
will alter the dynamics. So that is perhaps why the West is playing a little safe, not putting in their F-16s and not giving them this. And of course, they keep giving their, over a period of time, they've given permission to Ukraine to employ their weapons into Russian territory. So let's see as to where it leads.
So I have
Yeah.
only one question, and then there are loads of audience questions that we'll take. Uh, before the war, Jaishankar, when he went to Russia, Putin's own words that I would like to have Mr. Modi's perspective on this war, and I'd like to discuss this war with him. He very openly said that, and that's part of the joint statement and the statement from the Russians as well. Uh, Even the Ukrainian ambassador, when he came here, happy Holi karta hua aaya tha, and he expected us to kind of do something later on. He literally made a statement that we wish Mr. Modi would come there. As a matter of fact, in the West, there is a lot of speculation that Modi might plan a visit to Ukraine as well. I don't see any murmur in India about it. And Modi Saab is very secretive about all this stuff. He will not, it will be literally last moment. What do you think we are up to, sir?
We are not, you see, we are not up to playing the moderator on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very simple and straight. Now, we have this upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi to Russia, and obviously Ukraine will get discussed. Whether it is there on the agenda, open agenda, public agenda.
Russians have said it's a no limits agenda.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, I mean, whether it comes out in the open or not, this issue is something which will get discussed, because after all, we as Indians also we are a peace-loving country, and we would like to see peace in the world. And a lot of loss of life is taking place, which is a major concern on the humanitarian aspects. Now, it will get discussed. I'm very sure once we get the perspective of the Russians right, the clarity would emerge as to what do the Russians want, and what is the actual situation. I mean, many things do not come out in the public, right? Many things just they're not there in the media. They're not there for everybody to kind of digest. But certain aspects are made very, very clear on one-to-one meetings amongst diplomats, senior level diplomats, and dignitaries. So that kind of a thing will take place. Once we get back, we will know the Russian stand and Russians' aspirations as far as Ukraine is concerned. And it is just not the words, it's also the feel factor as to you can gauge. After all, one will be able to gauge the mood in Russia, or the Russian mood, and where it is going to lead. Next step would be, when this takes place, it's being followed by the NATO summit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The 8th, 9th, you have the Prime Minister's visit to Russia. Then you have this summit which is taking place in Washington on the 11th from the 11th to the 13th. Actually, it's just, one after the other. Now, at that particular instance, we would know as to what is the mood of NATO and what are the commitments NATO makes towards Ukraine, whether Ukraine is being told very categorically, and thank you very much, till you sort out your affairs, you're not getting any membership. Right? So that will also happen. Right? What is the outcome of these two will dictate the further course of action what India would like to take, if I may just put it very, very clearly.
I think, yeah, you could plant a seed right now and wait for it, see what happens, and then kind of react as the situation.
And then come on to the thing that, is it worth plunging in?
I was thinking,
taking on the lead.
Yeah.
For me to comment, no, India will take the lead. I'm so sorry, I cannot, knowing and whatever is my understanding of our geopolitical stances, we would like to gauge the mood or the stances of both the parties before we really want to get involved. And a request has to come from both sides.
Both sides, which pretty much is, I mean, you can say it's come, not come, it's debatable, but yeah, I agree with you, sir. It has to be an official request.
It has to be an official request from both sides that we would like India to play the mediator role and come up with a peace plan and help us out achieve peace.
True.
So,
but I agree with your idea of kind of leaving a little seed right now. Probably have a conversation with Zelensky as well, and kind of leave a feeler and wait and watch what happens. See what happens. Hello, hi kar do, and dekho uske baad kya hota hai. So I think that's a very interesting way to look at it. Guys, let's like this video here. Subscribe to the channel. We are at 238,000, so 12,000 from our target of 250. तो जरा यार थोड़ा help करो, likes मजे से ठोको, so that we can get there. Think there is a small little Pakistani standing there, so just give it a little bash. It'll really help me out, but once only, because the second time it gets cancelled. So you have a nuclear weapon in your hand, so just hit it once. Please do that and share these videos with your friends and families. Very important. This whole thing is going to come to a crossroad, guys, very, very soon. And it's going to be a very, very interesting game for India if we are able to actually play it, and if we do get an opportunity to play it. Let me put it like that. So please like, subscribe, and you guys can contribute towards this channel using the QR code or the PayPal, which is in the description, or super sticker, super chats. And of course, please do follow the Clips channel. Link is in the description. Follow the Instagram page, and of course, the Facebook page as well. So a lot of interesting shorts coming up on there. So let's see. The first question. Okay, there's a new member, Manavji. Thank you so much. First question comes from Partha. Thank you so much. He says, will NATO be threatened most by BRICS grain exchange?
No.
I'll also, may I kind of request you to give an overall picture of what you think of NATO versus BRICS, if there is any such thing, but
No, yeah. Let's talk of NATO. We understand NATO, right? So what we are looking at is an Eastern alliance coming about. It's just not it's not just BRICS alone. What has happened that CSTO, that the recent meeting which took place in I think Almaty itself, Kazakhstan, if I'm not wrong. Now what is happening is that after all, you have BRICS. Now, BRICS is what? Brazil, Russia, India, China. Up Russia, India, China also talks of RIC, right? There's something called RIC also. So if you look at it, where you look at US on one side and you look at a combination of RIC, Russia, India, China on the other side, you would know as to where the scales would tilt. So all that is happening exists, but the thing is, like, NATO is a full-fledged organization and with a clear-cut agenda. You do not have any organization which is there to balance out NATO.
Correct.
Will this alliance build up? Will it come about? Is something that we got to be, watching. You know what? We may be friends with Russia. Russia may be friends with China, but India is not friends with China.
There are loads of issues in the middle, yes, sir.
There are a lot of issues, interconnected issues. So this kind of a thing, balancing out, may be kindly difficult. Now, as far as NATO is concerned, definitely it is threatened. It is wary of this, of the BRICS and the growing importance of BRICS, and the numbers of countries joining BRICS is also increasing. Then you have this, as I said, the Eastern Alliance, the CS2O, which is existing, getting stronger. Then you have the North Koreans also, joining in. So India, I'm bringing in India because India is also wary of the North Koreans getting closer to the Russians.
Sir.
We may be close to Russia, but we are not very.
We are Pakistan not very
connection. For Pakistan connection. So there's a lot of complications. And I'm sure NATO also is gauging that and does feel threatened. Threatened at the moment, but on ground, maybe not. Practically not.
Sir. Priest of Mars, thank you so much. Greetings, sir. Why call them tactical nuclear weapons when we know there is no such thing? Every nuke is strategic, and given that Ukraine will inevitably end up as South Vietnam 2.0, whom is the West trying to fool?
No.
Two questions here.
It's a very, very, you may say it's strategic. The employment may be strategic. No, I'm just trying to make a difference. The employment of a TNW in an environment may be a strategic decision. But because the effect of a tactical nuclear weapon remains confined to a much smaller area, and the warhead is of a much lesser, quantity. So that is why they are called TNWs. Why it fits into the tactical battlefield. That it can be employed in a tactical battlefield area, the TBA, right? It is not going to carry TNW, if employed, is not going to have mass casualties as what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that is in that context. But rightly, its employment fits into the strategic domain. So that is where the difference is.
Yeah. Yuvraj, thank you so much. Says future of peace in Punjab, West Bengal, and Manipur. 100% positive, sir. Abhinav Sharma ji, thank you so much for this contribution. Very kind of you. You say, has Ukraine fiasco unintentionally provided the parties vital information that the US empire can be overstretched? If China advances against Taiwan, together with Israel tension along with Ukraine, too much for America to handle simultaneously.
Totally agree with you, Abhinav. I think you've summed it up very well. That this is a test for the United States, and as we see what is happening, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is the trigger of change in the geopolitical arena. It is the exposure of the Americans, their inability to bring about peace, their desire to remain relevant on the European soil, right?
That they've done.
It is
that
they have
done.
done. They have achieved that.
Yeah.
And EU today, if you ask me, has been reduced to just economic, organization, and the defense of the Europe has been handed over to NATO. NATO means United States, and to the defense industrial contractors. And obviously, if China carries out any action with Taiwan, which is unlikely, which they keep threatening, but they will also not do it because they also know as to what the repercussions are going to be and how they will be. And it's going to be a prolonged affair in their case also. So whether the Americans will be able to play a role, yes. The difference the difference that you got to understand is, Abhinav, that Americans are not so powerful on land. They are much more powerful at sea.
Sea and air. They've
Sea
not,
and
which is not
air.
touched, which is not even
Yes,
touched till
which
now.
at the moment the Americans are very much there. The presence, that is where the strength lies. So you cannot fully undermine them at the moment.
Yeah. Sunit Chibar says Kharkiv might be a bargaining chip for Odessa. Possibly.
Yes, why not? Absolutely, it could be, but it all depends. And so Kharkiv, now will this just stop at Kharkiv and also aim at Kiev?
Anurag Reddy ji, are Nepali Gurkhas still involved in this conflict?
I guess so. I mean, suddenly, of course, we did hear of the Nepalese fighting on both sides, and of course, we've also we've also seen the Indians fighting on the Russian side. So, uh, they are the Nepalese are fighting anywhere and everywhere. They're
Yeah.
good fighters. They like to get paid well for it, and they must be there.
Uh, I'm just going to say M055. You say, Major General, who benefits from a prolonged Ukraine Russia war? May I
Who
say both
benefits?
sides? May I say both sides, Russia and the West, both of them? Actually, I would say Russia and America, both.
I wouldn't say Russia is going to benefit territorially, right? America or the West is going to benefit economically.
Russia has also benefited economically, sir. He's been able to do his pivot to Asia.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's suddenly the trade with India has increased, but then it is losing also a lot on the
Yeah, of course,
whatever trade,
manpower.
uh,
Hmm.
all the gas pipelines, etc., whatever was the trade which was there with Europe. And of course, the Chinese are also losing out because Chinese trade routes ran through Ukraine, Russia, and Ukraine
Yeah,
into Europe. So that has also been affected. So primarily, it's the defense industrial complex, it's the oil industry which stands to gain.
true. Abhishek Samant Saab says, sir, do you think that US election will have any impact on the Russia-Ukraine war? You need to ask how much of an impact, sir. Will Trump open a talk with Putin if he wins?
Well, he is making a statement. He says, even before, as president elect, and before I get elected in February, I shall make sure that the uh, war has ended. And he's very confident about it. And I think, you see, what President Trump is a true businessman, and he places the interest of United States before the interest of anybody else, and he does kind of is looking everything economically. He doesn't look at things militarily,
Yeah,
and he's not. He rightly claims that there was no war that was instigated or which took place. So he says that he'll be able to squeeze in, President Putin and bring to the table and end the war. Maybe that happens. I kind of figure out the moment he'll switch off, the aid
yeah,
to
he's
Ukraine,
that's
that
it.
he will.
Mhm.
The moment you switch off the aid pipeline, Ukraine's offensive is going to halt. So either the Russians, if he allows the Russians to move, the Russians will be able to do what they feel like doing and play merry hell. But that's not going to happen. He'll say, Russia, you stop, I'll squeeze the aid. And I promise you that Ukraine will not, join NATO. And Russia's
So,
okay. And that's about it.
so Abhinavji, once again, thank you very much for that very generous donation, contribution. You say, from a China perspective, isn't it a colossal blunder that it doesn't resolve the border disputes? China's next step isn't to be the next USA. Next step is to be Soviet Union 2.0. Before dreaming about chasing USA, how can the world admire you if your neighbors don't?
You see, China's in deep trouble. We know it all, and China has learned a lot of good lessons and they've studied the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union in great amount of detail. It is claimed that they spent a lot of time studying the collapse of Soviet Union, and what are they doing today? Whatever they are doing today is uh, they're making sure that while they're not solved the border disputes, that is primarily that. I think how many have they solved out of 12? I think I
So they've
correct.
they've if I may, they've created more than they've solved.
Yeah,
So
but they have created more than they have solved. That is primarily to have reasons to keep fingering those particular countries, those
yeah,
issues.
yeah,
And they, like with India, they're not resolving, right? Nepal, there was a little give and take. They've already poked their nose into Bhutan. They've already entered Bhutan.
they've
So
already poked into Nepal as well, sir. Northern area that they've
Nepal,
yeah.
obviously, yeah. But they've kind of Nepal has kind of given it. So uh, if China thinks that it wants to become a superpower, well, nobody's going to accept it. We may have accepted America as a superpower, but to accept China as a superpower is kind of doesn't seem to be, on the horizon. Doesn't seem to be likely. While they may claim to be one, they can keep claiming, but will they be effective? They cannot be effective. And that's very. Uh, we got to be very clear about it. If they are going to play, what they couldn't even do anything as far as this peace plan was concerned. I think one of the shittiest,
Efforts.
ill-written efforts a schoolboy, school book effort, a school test effort, I would put it. बच्चे भी इतना एक उसको बोले एक पीस प्लान बना दो तो उसने बना दिया तो ये लगा दिया उसने. So if they could not play this part also, I think they do not have it in them at all.
Yeah. Shivam Bakshiji, thank you. He says, sir, Russia is going to invade Georgia as well. No.
अभी नहीं, थोड़ा रुक जाओ.
Rameshji, thank you so much. You say, sir, Europeans are opposing all agricultural produce from Ukraine without economic integration. Was NATO membership worth the lives lost for Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, you see, it all boils down to economics.
Yeah.
At the end of it all boils down to economics. You may be the best of friends. Poland may be the best of friends with Ukraine as far as fighting the battle war with Russia is concerned. But when it came to their agriculture produce, they stood ground and they said, "Thank you very much. We're not allowing your produce to come inside and flood our markets." So self-interest. No government worth its salt will like their own self-interest to be sacrificed. So if Ukraine thinks logically, Ukraine has not been a really good,
Bet.
what should I say? Good enterprise
Sir.
that has taken place. It's only benefited the Americans, I would say.
Troll says something fishy about the F-16s to Ukraine, even if they have a few pilots using Russian aircraft. But shifting does take time, and war ready at least 5 years. NATO in Ukrainian uniforms.
Yeah,
Do you know?
the last thing that you've said is very, very true, because NATO in Ukrainian uniform, you go back about week 10 days back, and there was this talk about allowing contractors to operate in Ukraine, American contractors. And you
Mercenaries.
know that this contractors which are available, all over the world, and especially in the United States, they are quite a powerful lobby.
Yeah.
Quite a powerful lobby, and BlackRock and all that. So they have
It'll
their
be
own
fun.
security.
It'd be fun. Russians are going to shoot down one chap, and there you go.
No, you see, These are contractors. The contractors have been fighting and they've been there in Afghanistan, right? They've been there in Iraq. So they
PMC.
have got killed. So these are veterans. These are veterans in uniform who are being paid 10x,
Yeah.
10x to fight freelancers, mercenaries, basically. Now, this will be there. Yeah, so you will have these pilots also piloting these F-16s.
Yeah, do you know that the Russians have offered a $50 million reward for somebody who can fly in an F-16 into Russia? And they've given the squawk codes, they've given everything.
आ जाओ,
It's available. Aro,
yeah,
hum de denge.
आ जाओ.
And they've given 6 airfields where you can land. So India signing logistic military pact with Russia and PM Modi's visit has rattled them too much. Banning Ukraine from joining NATO would have prevented this war from starting and end the war immediately. देर आए दुरुस्त आए, sir?
True. Sorry?
देर आया दुरुस्त आया?
There are this logistics pact is something which is very interesting. And it is, the LEMUA and all that, which is signed with the United States, it's something similar to that. And it is a logistics agreement where we can use each other's ports. Does Russia need it, or do we need Russian ports more? It's the other way around. We need the Russian ports more because of the Arctic.
Yeah, but he needs to come here in the Indo-Pacific. Now he's got one port in Sudan.
He needs to show his presence in the Indo-Pacific. That is there. I mean, but the significance of this pact is much more for India, I would put it this way, than for the Russians.
Of course.
And they got about, I think, 400 odd, ports at their bases along the Arctic Circle. So if we are able to use that and there's a mutual agreement, and that is what we need. We need, after all, we need to be part of the race for the Arctic.
Yeah. So this is an interesting comment which came. It's a joke, but says Ravi Trivedi Saab says contractors means chai pe charcha with the Lord Yamraj.
Yeah, Yamraj ke paas ultimately to wahi hai, but then they, it's you if you get into a soldier's mind. Now, if I may just put it, I'm a soldier myself. If you get into a soldier's mind, he just loves fighting. He loves to fight.
Yeah.
If you see me walking somewhere, you will find my finger is always like this. The trigger finger is always on the trigger, whether I'm holding a weapon or not. We guys love the trigger. We guys love to shoot. And I'm not joking. You see me walk and have a look at my finger. My trigger finger is always on the trigger. So it gets into your psyche. It gets into your system. So you want to be, your adrenal rush is only attained through fighting. And at that particular time, who cares for his own Yamraj or whatever? Even Yamraj is welcome at that particular time.
That's true.
एक बार ही वो खून लग जाता है ना मुंह को, तो फिर बुलेट का जो क्रैकिंग साउंड है, now I'm just sharing it with you. The first time that you face bullets being fired at you, you will tremble. Trust me, anybody and everybody. कोई बोलता है मैंने ट्रेम्बल किया तो वो झूठ बोलता है. But the second time you stop it. I mean, you little bit. Third time, you get used to it, and then thereafter you stand. Lag gaya to lag gaya. It doesn't matter. It goes past you, whiz past you. It goes and hits your next guy. This thing. It becomes, you get used to that arena. Somebody starts firing, it's okay. So the contractors are those kind of people. You say, "ठीक है यार, पैसा तो मिल रहा है. We are there."
But our forge fights for करना है. नाम नमक निशान.
Our forge is different. Naam namak, Indian this thing. And these guys have no family. They got no ethos. They got nothing. They just want to fight. Paisa mil gaya, achhi baat. If we survive, damn good. If we don't survive, so it's okay. We're meant to die in any case.
So, Shivam Bakshiji, thank you. He says USA's military is more scared of Russia over China.
Very true.
Prince Sarkarji, thank you so much. Ambani went to meet Gandhi family. What's cooking? Invitation card.
Invitation
Sounds
card,
wedding.
man.
Priest of Mars, thank you so much. You say, what are the chances of nuclear war given how things are shaping up, assuming we don't get a fall of Saigon 2.0 first?
No, no, no nuclear war happening. Plain and simple. We understand these are just deterrents,
Yeah.
and you got to be foolhardy to kind of use nuclear weapons
You have to be
because
foolhardy or Pakistan. There are only two ways.
well, you know, you just mentioned Pakistan and you talk nuclear. You look at the reels which are there, so pathetic. I mean, the mindset of the Pakistanis is so pathetic that they say हमारे पास nuclear weapons हैं तो we are far superior. Our nuclear weapons are superior than India. India हमारा. I mean, you ask an Indian, is Pakistan your enemy? He'll not say enemy. He says, ठीक है, मतलब whatever. But those guys have it in them, ingrained into them. It's pathetic. I mean, it's
So Pakistan's nuclear policy, you know what?
what.
Kiss your behind goodbye.
Mhm.
That's it.
Because they know it.
That's it.
Because they
There is
know
no
it.
other policy.
You know,
Stupid.
I don't want to talk about it because
No, I know.
those
I know.
guys, yeah.
Jay Krishnanji, he says, does Russia and NATO war was there in the Bilderberg annual meeting 2024? Yes, sir. It was held on 1st to 3rd June. It was there on the menu. They are
Yeah.
concerned about it. Lajwanti ji, you say, what are the chances NATO backs out of Ukraine overnight the way they did from Afghanistan, turn their focus on Taiwan next?
Yeah, you're talking about chances Trump comes to power, the same shit happens. You you put a full stop to all the aid, and you put a full stop to all the intelligence, and there it drops.
Yeah.
Because all this global hawk and all which keep really flying all over, and the satellite imageries and the photographs and all that which are being provided, that will all stop. In the moment that stops, NATO is done with. The war stops and NATO is done with.
True.
That is all contingent on Trump winning.
Last two, sir, Manovspan, he says, will Russia seek a peace deal or will it instead take all of Ukraine? If latter, will it stop there at Moldova, etc.? How will the new Finland front be handled? Will NATO survive a collapse? Wow.
You see, what you just said is what has been stated by the West. That if it takes Ukraine, it'll not stop. It'll enter Poland. It'll enter Finland. It'll enter Sweden. It'll go. It'll continue to do so. Well, that's a narrative which is being put forth by the West. Well, good for them. But can I have a question back again? As far as Russia is, as far as I want the first part of the question.
Yeah. I'll get it up. Why don't you just finish that part? I'll get this one up.
No issues. So as far as Russia is concerned, it wants peace. But today it wants peace, and it has spelled out what it wants in the peace plan. So these 4 territories, these 4 oblasts, these are mine. Ukrainians get out. These are Russian-speaking territories, and they will be administered. They are part of Russia. He's already stated that. And he's not going to. That is the minimum that he wants, if I may just put it. Just this. The moment he is given that much, the minimum guarantee, and the guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO and it will remain neutral, Russia will stop. If Zelensky continues to, is adamant, he says, no, I want the entire territory back, well, that's not going to happen. If the West also keeps supporting him to achieve that, mythological aim, होने वाला नहीं है.
जी, correct.
वो नहीं होगा. जब
Correct.
होगा नहीं तो you know what is going to happen.
Yeah.
So the war will continue to take place.
Batraji says, Adi, could it be both Ukraine and Russia are taking up Bharat's help to settle a dispute and US is playing spoil sport? As we know, Boris Johnson was the one who stopped Ukraine to talk to Russia.
Yeah, we agree that it was Boris Johnson who started the whole thing. If both of them seek help, if Ukraine seeks help, the United States, firstly, Ukraine on its own will not seek help. It would only seek help after it has consulted the Americans
So,
and the West and the NATO allies. Unilaterally on its own, it is not going to do it. If it does so, well, maybe you have the Americans playing spoil sport. But all this is subject to the elections. Nothing is going to happen before the American elections because everybody is hoping like hell Trump comes to power, and then we'll see as to what Trump has on its what's there on his table
true.
and what's he put across.
Sorry, but there are two more, sir. Thank you, Rameshji. He says, doesn't America wish for a British India out of today's India to confront China? That's the whole plan of that cookie chin state in the east that they keep that Sheikh Hasina had, blabbered about. So
I kind of don't. China has come into the picture now, and even if it was British India, so what? And we gone much past British India and whatnot. We don't talk about colonial terms at all. We look at India as Bharat, which is now one of the leading nations of the world, and edging out many big powers. So our mindset we got to change. American can keep wishing what they want to wish.
and on top of it, we are playing the game.
Yeah, we're playing the game, and people are wary of us, and we're playing the game very well.
Very well. Must say that. Yuvrajji, thank you. Taiwan invasion in August. Some defense think tanks are thinking.
Yeah, they are think tanks. They got to think, and if they don't think, they won't they won't know what to do for their living. So they have to keep coming out with something or the other.
Some theory or something.
Yeah, some theory. You can't be very sure.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, sir, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you. This was a very informative episode, and I think this is going to be a change, and the change is going to happen from there. So let's see how we kind of balance the show, as you've very rightly said.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we got to wait and watch for these two summits. This Modi, Prime Minister Modi's trip to Russia, and the peace summit, and the NATO summit, and subsequently a peace summit, which is going to take place.
so we could probably look at the week after next. We could probably look at what actually happened in this NATO summit and what's the game, and we could kind of do an update. That note, sir. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much. Good to be around.